Hey everyone, it's Sarah. I just had to do a video about this. I don't know if you guys have heard, but there was a house sold at foreclosure auction, I think in April, May, or June. And then when the person who was the high bidder at auction, this is in Burlington, Connecticut, when the person who was the high bidder at the auction went into the house for the first time, he found 3 dead bodies. And so now the Wall Street Journal has picked up on it. This is a story from yesterday, July 20th, and I thought if the Journal's talking about it, then the world is talking about it, and I want to chime in. So everyone is asking, how is it possible that this person could have bid at an auction, how there could be an auction of a house without anybody seeing the inside? Well, that's pretty common here in Connecticut, actually. And imagine if, your life went sideways and you couldn't pay your mortgage anymore, and you ended up in foreclosure and you ended up at foreclosure auction, but you're still living in the house. Would you want the public walking through your house in order to auction it off? No, you actually have the right to not let anybody in. Now, obviously, at the time of this auction, the people were no longer alive, and I don't know what happened, obviously, and the police still don't know what happened. 2 of the 3 bodies have been identified. One is one of the owners, and we believe their son. And they were, I have some inside knowledge of how they were found and the condition of their bodies. I'm not sure I should share what that is, but if you want to call me or message me, I can give you my insight. In any case, what happened was they were all found, passed away in the property, and deteriorated, quite decayed. So it had happened probably over the winter. And so by the time the auction happened, nobody could get in, the property was overgrown, and the auction happened anyway, which is what happens. There's an attorney assigned by the judge, and I'll show you now the court case. So this is our court docket, and this is the court case. There's the property, 7 Standish Lane in Burlington, and Paul Cash and Sally Ann Cash were the owners, and Sally has been identified as one of the bodies. They have not identified the 3rd body, but there's probably an assumption that it was Paul. The 3rd was their son. And so this is the case. It started in September 2025. And I'll show you that when it says here non-appearing and non-appearing, that means they never got a lawyer. They never represented that they had a lawyer. No lawyer ever filed what's called an appearance for them to represent them. So all of the activity in the case is listed here, and P means plaintiff and C means court. And so unless you see a D for defendant, because they're the defendants, there's just nothing taken on their behalf. So it proceeded to a foreclosure auction. There it is, judgment of foreclosure by sale, and an auction occurred, and then then the auction happened. The new buyer accessed the property, and now it says motion to open judgment to intervene. So I think what happened was the high bidder is likely filing a request to discuss this matter with the judge. It's not common for the high bidder to have any kind of standing in a foreclosure case. But again, if the Cashes were alive and well at the time of the auction and they didn't want anybody in the house, they wouldn't have had to let anybody in the house. So obviously the house was locked, inaccessible, and it's perfectly fine to proceed with an auction without seeing the inside. And if the high bidder wanted to pay the price, no matter whether he saw the inside or not, again, these are desirable properties. There's not a lot of properties for sale in Connecticut right now. The COVID has really changed the demand for properties and the supply. And this was an isolated property, a beautiful large home in Burlington, back from the road, not visible from the road, many thousands of square feet, and valued at, I think, at least $600,000, $700,000, $800,000. And the high price was had at $525,000. So sometimes you can get a good deal, but then it's buyer beware, as it was in this case. But again, any questions about the foreclosure process, I'm happy to discuss. And again, it's a really horrible thing, terrible tragedy of whatever happened with them and how they were discovered. But an interesting process, and they had every right not to let anybody in. And that's the big question about these foreclosure auctions is how did this happen in the first place? But again, it's the way our process is, the way our Constitution protects us from having somebody come in against your will without good cause. So, all right, very interesting. Another newsworthy foreclosure just wanted to talk about, and let me know if you have any questions. Thanks. Talk to you later.